So apparently, Steam GPT is this thing that was detected by Gabe Follower, and basically, from what I understand, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but what I understand is it's a tool that Valve is going to use for like customer service, and it's not going to be like you aren't interacting with this Steam GPT chatbot. It's they are interacting with it to gather information about your account. So like they can find out what your location history is so that they can say, well, you're always logged in New York, but today you're logged in Hawaii. That seems kind of odd. Um, they can generate like a trust score for your account based on how many VAC bans that you've had and that kind of stuff. And a lot of people are really like they saw the headline Steam GPT and they're like, oh my God, Valve is going to be using AI for customer service. And they're pretty mad about it. And I just thought that we could talk about it and see what everybody on the panel feels about it. So I think of all of the four of us, I am probably the one who is the most anti AI. Like I'm always complaining about AI stuff. Um, and I don't know how I feel about this in particular, because for me, what I hate about AI is not what this is doing. What I hate about AI is the stuff that steals art or just generative AI stuff. That's the stuff that I personally don't like. If you're using a tool to sift through things, I think before I used to be more anti that, but then Rich kind of brought me around on that. It's just a thing that lets you sift through a bunch of documents to make it a little bit easier. And even I have used that stuff from time to time when I've got a bunch of information and then I'm trying to sort through that information quickly. Like I think there was one time where I posted something to my YouTube channel and I said, hey guys, I need this information. A bunch of people responded, and then I used like an AI thing to look in it to find the information that I was looking for. I think for that stuff, AI is okay. It's when it gets to generative AI that I'm not a fan. But that's just me. I want to hear what these guys have to say. Rich, I already talked about, you kind of brought me around on the use of AI at some point. What are your thoughts on Steam GPT?
Yeah, so I am just reading this today, right? Or just as we were getting started. First of all, the name is funny that they call like they're actually calling it Steam GPT internally in their code. I find that a little funny. Like you could have called it anything, and they really stuck
Right.
with the GPT, kind of giving away the notion that this is some sort of Gen AI. But that said, what the leak is basically, code, right? So we're seeing some strings and some names in code that allude to Steam GPT and allude to it with trust score, with relation to CS2. Though you said it's not for customer service, Gabe Follower indicates that it may be for customer service. I think it's really unclear what this is actually going to be, but I think AI in customer service use is becoming more and more common. I don't, so like I'm also on the fence of like Gen AI. I'm a bit of a fence sitter. There are a lot of things I don't like about it. Um, but a lot of the things that I don't like, I feel can be fixed outside of it. I think these are systemic issues like displacing people's jobs. That's something that, if technology this outside of Gen AI, right? Just technology in general displaces people's jobs. I think we can solve that problem with like universal basic income, right? Which is a very controversial subject, but that's kind of where I land on that. This in particular, one thing I'll say is Gabe Newell is very bullish on AI. He had a random interview, a 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, where someone kind of just emailed him out of the blue. I believe that someone was a student I don't remember what country, perhaps Russia. But he just emailed Gabe and asked him for an interview. Gabe granted him the interview, and one of the questions that he asked about was AI, and Gabe was very bullish on the use of Gen AI. So the fact that other people at Valve feel similarly wouldn't surprise me too. And then the last thing I'll say is that if this somehow involves anti-cheat, which it seems like it might, I worry, of course, about false positives, but I think that Valve kind of trying everything they can, throwing the kitchen sink and everything else at how to solve the anti-cheat problem without kernel level, and that potentially including Gen AI. I'd be curious to hear their take on that. So that's kind of where I am. I'm just very curious to see where this all lands and what this all is, but I don't have any strong feelings yet.
So before I hear from the other guys real quick, I just want to say that I am assuming that this is not a customer facing thing. Like that if I call up Valve, like if I make a phone call or whatever, I'm not going to be going through like the stupid thing where I'm trying like where the fake robot pretends to be a person on the phone and they're like, let me check that out for you. And then there's like fake typing sounds, that kind of like that stuff drives me up the wall. If that happens, I'm going to be like, thumbs down, no thank you. You're on the wrong side of the of history here, Valve. But if it's just something that helps the people who are helping me with, like, if I want to return a game or some nonsense, then I'm like, okay, that's all right. You know, if it's just used as a tool, if it's used as a way for me to not be able to talk to a person when I need help with something, then get out of town. Russ, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I mirror a lot of your guys' thoughts in that, Gen AI and stuff. I'm not a fan at all. I don't like any of that stuff. But uh, I think that we throw the word AI into a lot of different things and tools and stuff nowadays, probably because people make money off of that idea. But when it comes down to it, for me, AI makes sense when it's an analysis tool, like something that I'm using to do some heavy lifting that I don't want to spend the time doing myself, and as a former analyst, like that was my job in the military, like I enjoyed the analysis part of things, but then also like it sucks sometimes when you got a lot of data to work through. And so I like the idea of, using like this Steam GPT thing, like the idea of a customer service person being able to get a snapshot of somebody right then and there, like, oh, how many bands have they had, that kind of stuff. That all seems very important to me. But my way of thinking about it is always that can help save me time, but it never can provide the right context. And the way I think about it is that I'm always smarter than the AI, no matter what, even if it is actually smarter than me. Like that's my mindset. So I never trust what it says. And so that's the biggest thing for me. It's like, if it compiles a bunch of data and then it brings it to me, it's like, okay, great. This is almost like a low level employee who's taken the time and doing all that work and providing it, but they haven't worked here long enough to understand context and what's important and what isn't. And so that's my job, is to look at that now and be like, all right, where are the cracks? How can I fill that? Where's the human touch to it? And so that's kind of my take on this. It's a tool like any other tool, and I think it'll be fine. People getting upset about it and whatnot, I'm not really sure. I mean, this is just really a rumor, and we're just kind of making assumptions off of that rumor. And so for me, I think that, it's been so long since I worked in an actual job that I don't know how people are using these tools nowadays, but I don't really have any issue with that. I bet if I was still working where I used to work, they're probably using tools like this all the time.
Oh, I'm sure that they would. Absolutely. Whether they should or not is a completely different
Right.
animal.
The whole thing for me is that it can't replace my own critical thinking. Like like I can't just trust what they're saying and then just go with that, because I feel like that's just going to lead to the dumbing down of us as people, and that's what I'm worried about, is like over relying on this stuff. I don't want to get into the Wall-E effect where we're just all like floating around and being entertained all day, like we need to have a little bit of that crunch time in our brains too.
Yeah, I feel strongly about that too, Russ. In the last episode that we had last week, I mentioned that like it's pretty consensus that like software developers, a lot of them are using Gen AI in their coding practice, and they're everybody's maybe morals or integrity there may vary, but for me, I feel very strongly that if I'm committing the code to the code base, whether or not AI wrote it, I understand the code, right? That's something that is very important to me. And I think that like that comes from even before AI, right? Stack Overflow. A lot of people would copy and paste code from Stack Overflow and say, okay, I figured out, I figured out, I Googled how to solve this problem. Stack Overflow gave me the answer. I'm going to paste the answer into my code base. Okay, it works great. That might be a great start, but I'm not going to feel comfortable until I understand what I just pasted. Why does it work that way? And so I'm the same way now with AI. And I'll tie that back to what you were saying, Bill, is I will sometimes take like a bunch of information and be like, can you summarize this for me? Or can you point out the parts that I'm looking for XYZ, right? But I won't take that answer at face value, right? I'll also say, point me to where in this file that says that. Point me to the URL that, is the source of this information. And that is similar to looking at a wiki, right? I'm not going to look at a wiki and take it for face value. I look at a wiki and that's my starting point in the journey of finding out more information. Then I go to the sources that are linked in the wiki, and all of that, like, kind of media literacy stuff, I think is what's really important in terms of dissecting what's correct and what's not correct, whether it is AI or just a random person spouting nonsense on the internet.
Most of the time, it's a random person spouting nonsense on the internet. To be
That's
fair,
right.
I mean, that's what this podcast is. It's random people spouting nonsense on the internet, right, Gary?
Random nonsense.
Random nonsense. What do you think about this, man?
So, the part of me, I've always been, I feel like how Rich is, I feel like I'm a bit more cautious overall. And I've seen a lot of people just send it. Have you guys ever seen Larry the Enticer? You got to see Larry the
No.
Enticer. He's on YouTube. He has a lot of shorts. He has he's like a Canadian redneck, and he has a snowmobile, and he just jumps these snow mounds that he makes. And before he does it, he goes, "What are you guys, silly? I'm gonna send it." And I
I
feel
have
like,
seen that guy.
yeah, I feel like everyone's just Larry the Enticer. They're just like, boop, I'm going to send it. What is that? Oh, I'm going to send it. And we just have a bunch of Larry the Enticers now. And that's all we got is a bunch of Canadian rednecks just like letting things go. And I know that that's the majority of it. Like, no one is doing the due diligence. Not no one. The few are doing the due diligence to properly go about it. And I've seen... what the problem is like when you take a look at really good models lately, because I've been involved with it lately, and it goes into, committing and all that other stuff, and really goes through a bunch of stuff. And it really does such a good job that even like the commits are kind of terse. So like you can parse it super easy before and after, and you're looking at it, you're like, well, yeah, all right, yeah, that looks great. And there's this kind of like trust that is like slowly building of like whatever this thing is doing is like, I could feel it. I can feel it myself where it's like, okay, yeah, all right, that looks good. I can feel it where I have so much trust in what it's doing that I feel like that's where I start getting really iffy. And then, you have those stories where there's a guy that was arrested in Las Vegas because he had a face match. And it said 100%, like 100%, that's the dude. And it's like, you were trespassing, you were
Right.
sleeping on property. He's like, I'm working here. And they're like, hey, you got to come with us. And he's like, here's my license. They're like, no, we don't care. You're this person. He's like, no, I'm not. Like, can I give you my pay stubs out of work? I'll show you my name. They're like, nope, you can't. You're going to jail. And they just took him to jail. Like, he was like trying to show all this information. And they were like, the cop was like, 100%. System said you did it. Let's go. And I'm like,
That's Minority Report shit right there.
yeah, that's the part. So when it says like, oh, also it has to be named Steam GPT, because if it was named Gladys, I don't think anyone would trust it. Like everyone
More like
like
Wheatley.
yeah, like you have to kind of give it like a kind of a normal name so that, people have like a neutral stance with it. My concern with this, insofar as however vague it could be with whatever they're interfacing with it in any means, perhaps it's like, I'm looking for this game, and it's like, here's a game that you're looking for. Cool. All right, that's awesome. Show me a bunch of stuff where you can like whittle through tags and libraries and stuff and show me some hidden gems. Awesome. I don't mind that at all. But if it's on the flip side, where we have talked about like VAC 2.0 with the AI components on there, my biggest concern on that is that I still want a human to vet it after an AI has consumed the ocean and just like filled up a cup, right? Like, I've gone through the ocean. Here are your cups of people that need to be banned. And someone needs to look at it. And I don't want a score attached to it. I want information attached to it, but I don't want a score. I don't want like this guy has a 98% chance that he's cheating. Because then that's like people like, oh, 98% chance, just like the cop, right? 100%, that's you. You're going to jail.
That's
So
what
I-
this has. It has a score. It's a trust score or something
Yeah.
to your account.
I
That's
don't
bad.
I don't think having a trust score that an AI,
Or
which
it could
is
be bad.
that, well, you know, when there's like, so AI is all, the whole point of how AI started was identifying things and the probability of something being something, right? Like that was how it started. And then it was like you put in an input and it's like, that's a cat. And then we did the cat and it would spit out a cat. It would generate a cat. And that's where we got into things like, oh, that's super awesome. So it goes both ways, right? But when you have a system that is trying to figure stuff out, it's giving like an approximation of what it thinks it is, right? It's not actually intelligent in any sense, at least now. So I don't like the idea of a score if it's presented to someone that would be taking action. I'm okay with a score where it says, here is something that you need to vet and here's the information, and not providing the score, because then it's a neutral stance for the person that has to vet it, right? It's like, okay, I have to look at this and it's like 98% chance I just don't want that percentage thing there. That's the only thing that I would say. I'm fine with the rating to present, but hide that to the people that are vetting.
One thing about the score, again, for the listeners, we have to remember this is all we're looking at
Rumor.
are some strings. It's
Right.
even the rumor, like I'll take for granted that these are real strings in the code base, right? I'll take that for granted and say, even if all of those strings are true, that's all they are, right? So like when we're talking about trust score, what it says is that there is a message object called get trust score internal response. And I'll speak to that in a moment. And that object contains a few variables like trust score, precision, age, bucket, account, and result. And the response part of that name is actually pretty important because it implies that it really is getting a trust score. It's not calculating a trust score. It's getting it from another service. So a service exists from which it's getting a trust score. And I say,
unless that's an AI thing itself.
here's
AI
the
all the
thing.
way down.
Yeah. Oh, gee, nothing but AI.
Well, so this gets at a question, right? Because I don't know how a Gen AI chatbot or Gen AI anything contributes meaningfully to VAC yet. And that's where I'm curious, right? Because VAC, I believe, already has a trust score, right? And it is using AI. It's just not using Gen AI. It's using ML AI, machine learning AI. And so I believe it already has a trust score. It already does all of these things that we're worried about, which is to say it will compile analytics about your game and about your play and potentially flag you. And then a person will look at that if you're flagged, and then a person may ban you, and there are still false positives, right? So all of these problems already exist. And so I don't know if Gen AI is going to contribute meaningfully to that one way or the other. What I'm seeing from this is that it will get a trust score. And what I'm inferring from that is that this is a chatbot. And so if you are trying to dispute a VAC ban, this chatbot will get that score from VAC and then use that to have a conversation with you, not a phone conversation with you, but a text conversation with you, and say, well, this is why you were banned or whatever, right? Or maybe if you have a good trust score, it'll be like, oh, actually we'll unban you as a one-time only thing.
So you do think that this is, sorry, Carrie, I'm jumping in. You do think that this is a customer facing chatbot? I
can't right now. I can't really picture anything else that this is for. Like, I can't really see how Gen AI contributes meaningfully to VAC, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Let me just jump in real quick. So for those who don't know, because I had to Google it, VAC is Valve Anti-Cheat. That's what that is.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Anti-VAC.
But Carrie, what's your read on that?
So all right, I have two different thoughts. I'll address what you're saying at the moment. I think what you're saying is completely fine insofar as what is the term when someone gets a judgment and then wants to fight it back again? It begins with an
Appeal.
A. Appeal. Thank you. When you appeal a ban, I could see that. I could, also being able to speak to something, rather rapidly and be like, hey, my brother was actually playing. And it's like, "Burp," like here's all the information that we have and the thing is going to stick. And maybe however that appeals thing, maybe it's just to answer those types of things. I don't know how intense that type of stuff is for them in the background. Perhaps it's often. Maybe it's very time consuming for them. I have no clue. Most of the stuff, like we've said, is like a lot of speculation as to what this ultimate thing will do. As it applies to like however we're talking about it, I'm indifferent ultimately. Like I have some concerns, but I don't know enough about it that I could actually say yes, no, one way or the other. There was a thought that I had for the Steam GPT insofar as what was going on, but the thought escaped from me. It'll have to go. But that's to answer your question directly. For what you're saying, I'm completely fine with that. But I don't know. I think it could be a little bit more widespread. Oh, I remember what I wanted to talk about. Did you guys ever play Halo 2 multiplayer?
Yeah.
No, not multiplayer.
Did you ever go on Bungie's website and take a look at the data after you played games?
Yeah.
So you remember it.
Yeah.
You remember that you would see the map and you would see where you got killed and all the other stuff. And
Yes.
it was keeping track of everything. So the entire game was actually recorded in a flat way. And I don't think this is the side conversation I was going to have. I don't think you have multimodal AI, but there is no multimodal AI that can consume video feed and act on that in any way. It's too much. But if you flatten that data to how like Halo 2 was, where all the data that you have of a match gets flattened to like, this is where that person was, this is where you were, and this is how he killed you and with what, and with, how many things. There's a lot of things that you can instantly distill with an AI in that stack that would very much help, speed things up. And that you don't need to do squat for. There's no like kernel level anything. That's just capturing data of what actually happened in the game. So that type of stuff is, I think, where that's how my mind of VAC 2.0 was always going to be, was this idea of you're recording the matches and AI would go over the match afterwards and just be like, nonsense, throw it away. I don't need this anymore. And then if it was like, oh, let's flag this, then it would save it somewhere. And that's really what I thought it would be. Not that it would act in a game that cheating was happening in at the moment, but rather after the game had completed, evaluating what was going on based on all the information it had, and be like, this is impossible for what this was. This needs to be looked at a little bit deeper. And that's what how I always thought about it myself. So again, I don't know which way this is going. I do like the general idea of ML for like cheat detection, because that's like the best way to actually scan everyone's games, right? Like you just have this thing that scans and you just have to give it this flat file that it can go through in seconds and get an idea. But that's my only thought that I wanted to touch base on, if anyone remembers it.
That reminds me of there's a MOBA, Heroes of the Storm, from Blizzard. And when you played that at the end, you could watch a replay, and it wasn't recording video. It had like, these were tiny, tiny little files. But when you loaded them into the game, you could watch your replay. And so if the four of us are playing Counter-Strike 2 or whatever, and each of our machines generates this file that you're talking about, Carrie, and then it compares everybody's file, and my file has different information than everybody else's file, well, that means I've probably screwed with something, and it's easy to figure out. So like, if I snipe Carrie from across the map and there's a wall between us, well,
Right.
then clearly I cheated. And that's the kind of thing I think that it could figure out. I just, the whole idea here behind AI as a decision maker when it comes to bans, that is something that I think is a terrible idea. We don't know if Valve is doing that here,
I'll
but
say
if they do, then
I'll
yeah, go ahead.
just interrupt. You mean Gen AI, right? Because ML AI is almost certainly being used not to make the decision, but to make the initial decision today for Valve?
I'm going to be completely honest. When you guys say ML AI and Gen AI,
I
I
gotcha.
don't know the difference. Like, to
I
me,
gotcha.
they
Yep.
are both things where they're just like, it's like when, do you guys remember when HD TVs first came out and everything was HD this and HD that? I remember seeing in a Walmart, like I was walking through the beauty section with my wife or something at the time, and hanging on the shelf was lip gloss and it said HD on the package. You know what I mean? And I'm like, HD, what the hell does that mean? Like, that's the kind of thing where I'm like, everybody's just throwing AI as a label on things because it makes the price go up of their stock. Like, that's how. So when I
Right.
say Gen AI, in my opinion, Gen AI is where that's the plagiarism machine that pollutes the planet. Like, that's the thing that I
Correct.
hate so
Correct.
much. MLAI,
Yes.
I'm guessing that's the thing that I'm okay with, where it's sifting through information.
Yeah, essentially. So MLAI is like a technically Gen AI comes from a statistical model as well, but MLAI is meant to catch anomalies and patterns in data in very large data sets, and it's more kind of discrete, meaning it's attacking those data points in a language that the data that is relevant to the data, whereas Gen AI, what we're talking about, especially LLMs, large language models, right? What they are meant to do statistically is just predict the most likely next word, right? And so, like, it's just giving you a blob of text based on what should come next after this with some kind of variables therein, right? So yeah, it's hard to kind of describe more than that, but the kind of where we're at right now when we're talking about companies that are really into AI, they're all into Gen AI. MLAI has been a thing for like 15 years, whereas Gen AI is just getting into kind of where it's at right now.
So many letters. I feel like I'm watching what is it, Good Morning Vietnam, where he's like, if the VP is such a VIP, shouldn't we
Oh.
keep the PC on the QT? If
Right.
if the VC finds out, he could end up MIA and we'd all be put on KP, or it's something like that. I friggin' love that
He
movie.
says it verbatim and then says it's something like that.
No, it's not verbatim. It's close. I used to have the soundtrack
Yeah.
on cassette, and I would listen to it over and over and over again. But anyway, lots of letters, too hard to keep track.
One
Let
last
us,
thing before
yeah.
we move over onto the next topic. This will be very quick. I have no I don't know if this is the truth or not. It was a passing thread, but apparently Gamescom this year, at the main level, if you don't have something with AI on it, you don't go on that level. You go on
Yeah.
the second level. So that's what I heard is like AI is that place right now is like it's so like the HD, just slap HD on it, is where they're at.
I wanted to add two more things as well before we jump in. It'll be quick. Carrie, you mentioned maybe it's time consuming for them. You were saying maybe the Steam support, whether it's responding to appeals or things like that, is time consuming for them. I will say this is one place. So I'm more critical of Valve here than I am specifically of this Steam GPT because I have no idea what form this will take. But I am already very critical of Valve in sort of under hiring or understaffing or whatever when it comes to Steam support. I think most of us have had mostly good experiences with Steam support. So like for the 99% of times that you need Steam support, I just want a refund for the thing I only played 30
Right.
minutes. No big deal. But the 1% of time that you need something kind of higher level and they stick you with whatever they stick you with, that's the part that like people have had really bad experiences on, and something that Valve makes more money per employee than virtually any company that exists, or maybe any company that exists. I don't know. And so like you could afford to figure out your Steam support staffing situation. I don't know how you do it, but you could, that's your problem to figure out. The other thing I wanted to point to was that game discovery idea. I love it. If you could use Gen
Right, yeah.
AI, yeah, I think if you can use Gen AI to summarize the reviews like that the user reviews that exist for every game. This is actually something that was already done by Ichiro. I forget his full name, but Ichiro, aka Deshoban, right? The developer of a few games, but also someone that has worked on the various Steam labs. One of the things he developed recently was weloveeverygame.com. That website is a little bit different now than it was when he first launched it, but when he first launched it, it did just that. It did a summary of the user reviews and it made tags that didn't exist based on those summaries, tags that were like fascinating cross sections of things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to find. And then you could find other games related to that. So I thought that was really cool.
Very cool. Let us know what you guys think of this in the comments down below. Is Valve using AI? Is this ML AI? Is it
LMNOP.
Gen AI? I forgot all the things. You guys know what I mean. Let us know in the comments down below. This was just a small part of my podcast, the Nerd Nest podcast. And if you enjoyed it, then do me a favor and click on that like button down below. And if you really enjoyed it, then I think you should check out the link in the description down below the like button. It's going to take you to the full podcast so you can check out the entire conversation and a whole lot more. If that sounds good, I hope to see you over there. Stay rad, and thanks for watching.